Welcome to the LSU NCBRT Preparedness Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Markle. I am a curriculum development specialist here at NCBRT, and I work in collaboration with subject matter experts to create valuable and timely training for the responder community. The National Center for Biomedical Research and Training provides mobile training to both the national and international emergency response community. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we're beginning a new series on incident response with Sam Shurley, where we'll discuss the Austin serial bombings that happened back in 2018. So welcome, Sam. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
So before we dive into this topic, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. So I am recently retired 4 months ago from the Austin Police Department. I spent 30 years on the job. Like everybody else, I came up through the patrol ranks, spent all my career in municipal policing. I was fortunate enough to, the backbone of my career went through the special operations branch of law enforcement. Spent time doing a lot of those things. And at the time of the incident that we're going to talk about, I was a lieutenant in our intelligence division, assigned as a watch commander at our real-time crime center, which comes into play later in this. At the end of my career, a few months back, I was the special operations commander for the Austin Police Department. Special operations in Austin encompasses our full-time Tier 1 SWAT team, which also comes into play during this incident, our full-time EOD or bomb squad, which is part of a larger task force with ATF and our federal partners, and they are responsible for a 14-county area in Central Texas. It also has our aviation assets, helicopters, fixed wing, our robotics units, our unmanned aerial vehicles, our hostage negotiators, our patrol canine division, as well as our marine unit, which is our lake patrol. So big umbrella of about 80 people that were under that larger division.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. So to begin this series, we kind of just want to dive into your account of the first several bombings, kind of leading up to that last day, which is where we'll dive into the response that happened that last day. So can you go ahead and take it away?
Sure. In 2018, like you stated before, we had what for any community in the United States would be an unusual kind of a black swan event take place in Austin. To give you a little background about Austin, we are a city of a little over 1 million inside of our city of our official population. Of course, the daytime population swells significantly with commuting workers, visitors, and the students at the University of Texas, which are 60,000. The greater Austin metro area is made up of about 2.7 million people in our metropolitan statistical area. At this time, we're the 11th largest city in the U.S. In 2018, probably not that many less, but we're a large tech boom town, government, tech, education. And Austin Police Department is the primary law enforcement agency in the city. And in 2018, we were roughly at a manpower or staffing strength of just under 2,000. We have all the problems that a normal large city of that size in America has, but no matter how large of a city you are, no matter how many resources you have, an incident like this, a one-time incident like this, can tax even the most resource-laden jurisdiction. Think NYPD with their 25,000, 35,000 cops, they would be stressed with something like this.
Yeah.
So with our department, this was incredibly impactful and a black swan event, not to mention the incredible tragic circumstances related to the victims of this series of crimes. So March of 2018, and to further set the background, we have the city of Austin is known as an entertainment mecca. We have a lot of music festivals. We're known as the live music capital of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And during the month of March every year, we have a large music, entertainment, film, comedy, and multimedia festival over the course of 2 weeks called South by Southwest.
Mm-hmm.
That brings in well over 250,000 visitors to the
Wow.
Austin area during that time. So it's one of our marquee events during the year, and it's one of it puts Austin kind of on a platform globally during that time within the entertainment realm. So you put that as the background of these events. So that's going on while this is happening. So not only is Austin in the public eye for a positive reason, this festival, but now we're in a global eye because of the events that start on March 2nd of 2018. March 2nd is also notable. It's Texas Independence Day, so it's significant to the city and the state. But on March 2nd, we initially, I was on duty as a watch commander that day. That morning, it's kind of before school, so it's early morning hours in the area of 7:30 a.m., somewhere in that neighborhood. The Austin 911 received a call of an explosion that took place in a residential area in the northeast section of Austin, a normal residential area. And when you hear something like that, you think an accident, you think hot water heater, you think something of that nature, but you certainly don't. Your mind doesn't immediately go to a targeted improvised explosive device. That said, when our patrol officers arrived, Austin Fire arrives, Austin Travis County EMS arrives, they find that it does appear to be a true explosion from a device of some sort, and it took the life of a gentleman named Stephen House. Mr. House was preparing to take his daughter to school, and her witness account says that he walked out on the porch, found a package on the porch, picked it up. She heard some kind of a snap or a click, and he seemed to recognize that something wasn't right, and the device goes low order in his hands, meaning it exploded, and it was enough to sadly kill Mr. House. His daughter was not injured at that time, but there was significant damage to the porch area of the house. So seeing that triggers, of course, a larger scale investigation. They send our bomb squad out, of course, the EOD. They're the primary investigators of any explosive or any kind of combustible or anything that you would commonly refer to as a bomb, whether it's improvised or whether it's a munition or something of that nature. And our EOD is incredibly busy. The amount of calls would probably surprise people generally, but that's why we have a full-time team, and they're part of the task force because they're going out on calls daily. And most of the calls turn out to be, nothing sinister, nothing nefarious, no targeted devices. Most of the time, they're found munitions from the military. They're fireworks. There's some sort of thing of that nature. And by and large, most of the calls are really nothing. They're false calls in that we thought this was an explosive. Turns out not to be. But in this case, we truly had one. We also have our homicide units, homicide detectives come out because we have a death involved. And what was learned was in the post-blast investigation, which EOD conducts in conjunction with our crime scene units and homicide, is that this was a small, medium-sized package. It appeared to be cardboard. It was not sent through the mail, which means somebody had to actually place it on the porch at the house. And it was victim initiated, which means that the victim themselves would initiate it, whether it's by moving the device or package, opening it, there's some mechanism attached to the device that will set it off when the victim does something. And in this case, we believed it was simply picking the package up that caused the device to go off. Kills the gentleman, and that's unusual, as you might imagine. And red flags did go off at that point, but it's a one-off at that time. So while we're investigating that, it's a mystery. We have no workable leads. We have evidence. The device is it was an improvised explosive device contained in the package with shrapnel and anti-personnel matter attached in it to cause damage to a human being. But at that point, it's a whodunit. It's cold. We don't have leads. We don't have any cameras that we can see a person come up. We don't have any witnesses. So it's kind of, wow, that was highly unusual. It's very alarming, but that was that. The investigation, of course, continued, but at that time, no suspects, no workable leads. They're just working the case. 10 days later, on March 12th, we have, again, at a residence in the east side of Austin, this time in the central east part of town. And the city of Austin is predominantly socio-demographics are kind of run along Interstate 35, which is our major north-south corridor. Interstate 35 connects us to the rest of Texas on a north-south axis, down to San Antonio and up to Dallas and further. But on the east side of that interstate, we have predominantly is where the demographics are more of African Americans, more of Hispanic Americans, and less of just a homogenous group. There's a much more of a diverse mixture of people on that side of the line. And the reason this comes into play is the first victim, Mr. House, was African American. The second victim of the second bombing is also African American. So in a city where African Americans make up 12 to 15% of the population, which is a microcosm of the United States, we have two African American victims of targeted IEDs. Of course, one of the angles that you have to take into account is that this is an unusual event, and we have two similar victims, and that's unusual in itself. So we had to look at a racial component to this. And once the second device went off, and this happened at a home, we recognized that we're going to have to really, we have to look at this as a serial incident. And when the second one went off, we started to do that. The second one went off at the home of Draylon Mason, a 17-year-old, by all accounts, an outstanding young man, a high school student, had an incredibly bright future ahead of him, had scholarship offers. He was involved in orchestra, and apparently was just a superstar. There was a package on their porch that day. His mother brings it in the house. He takes a look at it, and he opens the package, and that was, again, a victim-initiated package. It was not mailed. It was placed on the porch. And he was killed in the blast that resulted, and his mother was severely injured. Of course, patrol goes out on that. Now we have a serial incident. And that's what began a larger machine moving at that point. Again, in my division, the Intel division, that starts a lot of work going between our real-time crime center, which provides tactical intelligence to investigative units as well as patrol and tactical units, and our strategic intelligence division, which is housed in the Austin Regional Intelligence Center, which is part of the larger Texas Fusion Center, which is a large, very resource-laden division for us in Intel Clearinghouse. That also brings in a larger network of our own investigators with the Austin Police Department, but it also brings federal partners in, as you might imagine. FBI and ATF, along with numerous other three-letter agencies, alphabet soup of agencies, begin to offer and support our efforts to investigate this thing, and not just investigate it, but put a stop to it, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Our bomb squad guys began to get under a lot of stress, because after the second incident, we also start getting an avalanche of suspicious package calls. Suspicious package calls are not that unusual after the events of 9/11 and the anthrax letters. If you remember back that far, there was hundreds, thousands of calls every day on white powder and suspicious package. Well, this is really relegated to the city of Austin, but people are calling in on any package they see that they don't understand, or they don't know what's going on with it. Any box that's on the street, and you'd be surprised by, if you walk around every day, there's stuff like that left everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But they start going out on hundreds of calls. During this time, there was over 2,300 during the course of March of 2018 in the city of Austin. We had to investigate over 2,300 suspicious package calls.
Wow.
Our bomb squad actually responded and investigated 600 alone. And I'll get into some of those details as we go. Our leadership, the leadership of the Austin Police Department, the leadership of the Austin Regional Office of FBI, supported by San Antonio Field Division of FBI, they're all hands on deck. ATF, which also maintains a regional office in Austin that's part of our explosives task force, they bring people in and they start working these cases. But again, we are jammed up to a certain extent because it was placed, it's victim initiated. What we have as far as evidence goes is the remnants that are recovered during the post-blast investigation of the device itself. Again, a relatively common or everyday sort of packaging, cardboard box. There are remnants of what we believe are pipe bombs, simple
Mm-hmm.
pipe bombs inside. Some of it's galvanized steel, some PVC involved. So we didn't have a distinct signature at that time, but we do know at this point someone is building devices and planting them to kill people. It's incredibly clear to us, and that's the situation we face. So at the same day, while bomb squad and while all the investigators are at this house in East Austin, less than 5 miles away, another device detonates. That's when we were already at our highest level of concern, of course, but that's when it's not panic. There was some components of panic in the population,
mm-hmm.
but that's when the pressure goes from high to off the charts, because now we have another package that happens the same day. And in this one, 75-year-old female named Esperanza Herrera finds a package on her porch. It's actually at her mother's house. Her elderly mother finds a package on the porch. But this package, and we know this because thankfully, Mrs. Herrera survived this. She was wounded critically, but she was able to tell us that there was rudimentary writing on top of the box that had just the address written in kind of marker, Sharpie, common. But the address was actually the house directly across the street. So it appears that whoever placed it meant for it to go to the house across the street, because that's where it was addressed to. At least that's the belief. Ms. Herrera picks the package up and she's going to walk it across the street to her neighbors. She gets about halfway across the street and the device detonates in her hand, causing her severe injury to her legs and her torso. But again, thankfully, she survived. Yeah. With that, we were able to get some valuable information. We now know that we know without a doubt, I mean, we already knew, but we know without a doubt someone had to place it there. We know that they are staying to the east side of Austin. We know that they're writing the address on the cardboard box. We have remnants of that already, but that confirms it. And it's escalating, right? The devices aren't getting bigger, but they're having the same deadly effect. But now we have two in the space of a few hours. So it looks like this person must have gone to the first house at the Mason home and placed it, and then gone to the Herrera home and placed it, or vice versa, but pretty much in a almost simultaneous fashion. With the incidents all happening in East Austin, now we're one happening March 2nd, two happening on March 12th. We have so many people working on this. And at one point we had over 600 of our federal partners from the FBI, and we had another considerable amount of ATF to include other federal agencies that came to assist. But at that point also, that's when we call in our partner units, the EOD bomb squads from the San Antonio Police Department. San Antonio is about an hour and a half south of Austin, but they're a little bit bigger city than Austin, and same size department, same size bomb squad. We work with them. We work with them frequently and share information with them. We asked for their help. They're fantastic in every way. They came right up to Austin to help. And we also called our partners in the Houston Police Department's bomb squad. Houston's largest municipal agency in Texas, largest city in Texas. They send their large bomb squad out to assist us. And our bomb squad and all of these bombs, whenever we go out on suspected packages with EOD, and we believe there's something to really prosecute there, we will send two bomb techs, the actual experts in this, that can identify and render safe devices. Render safe is kind of what it sounds like. It's not quite MacGyver cut the red wire, but they're able to render these things safe if by diffusing them or however they're able to do it. There's tactics and techniques and procedures that I'm not going to go into because they're just that. But they use procedures to render these things safe, and they send an explosive sniffing dog. So with a handler. So we have a canine component to generally speaking, a 3-person team. Okay, so now this large machine descends on Austin, and everybody in the Austin Police Department, for that matter, and our patrol division was fantastic. They were able to really stay ahead of the game, because last thing we want is for them to respond to one of these calls and accidentally initiate a device and hurt one of them and other people that might be in the area. So we're trying to make sure that everybody's aware of that. At this point, our chief and the FBI special agent in charge are starting to deal with a lot of media, starting to put out information. At that point, we let the Austin population and everybody else understand that we have a person or persons, suspects placing devices. We're telling people to watch out for suspicious devices because that is an absolute necessity. We understand it's going to cause an avalanche of suspicious package calls, and that's why we have our partners involved. But we have to make sure that the public is as safe as we can make them. And being that we can't be everywhere at once, we have to have a partnership, in essence, with the public and the community to understand this is what's happening. We need your help to be on the lookout for suspicious persons, suspicious packages, anything of that nature. Because, again, we don't have a suspect. We don't have a pattern. We don't have a comprehensive understanding of where, how, or when the suspect or suspects will strike next, who they'll target, or really anything. We don't have a vehicle. So we're just, the work on the case continues. Intel analysts from the federal side, intel analysts from our side, from the state side, everybody is working this case. So and I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention our state police, the Texas Department of Public Safety. Their bomb squad also was brought in, and they also helped prosecute these calls. And none of the calls at this point resulted in a real package in any of these suspicious package calls, but they were knocking out these calls right and left, and that was a tremendous help because our bomb squad guys were, you know, they're running on an hour of sleep a day, just absolutely, just running crazy. And the harder part of that is the canines that we have. They require rest. We can't just run these dogs because they'll become less effective. And of course, we don't want to cause any harm to the dogs as well. But so we're at a critical mass. Something had to change. So for the next better part of the week, and during this time in the real-time crime center, as far as tactical intelligence goes, and me as a watch commander, because all of these things are happening in the daytime, and I was a day shift watch commander, and we have several operators, analysts in the real-time crime center, and we're taking in information, we're passing it to the relevant individuals, we're compiling these things, we're pushing it up for strategic intelligence analysis, and we're keeping the real-time kind of record of what's going on to push up to higher intelligence assets. Okay, so for the better part of a week, that's again where we are. We're in the same place we were after the first and the second explosions. So now we have the third, and the national media is picking up, the global media is picking up on this, and a simple Google search will show you how this actually unfolded. And as far as people picking up on it, the large newspapers, the large media companies were starting to talk about, hey, what's going on in Austin, Texas? So we have that, and we have national media showing up. So yeah, it's a bit of a circus, but it's organized chaos. The command post, which was made up of the leadership of Austin Police Department, our state agency, our federal agencies, formed up and did a magnificent job. We could talk about some of that on the back end. So that stays the way it is. Again, all three devices are on the east side of Austin. Okay, we're still looking at a possible racial component to this, just because all three victims were persons of color, and we really didn't have much else to go on. They're still working the evidence collected in the post-blast investigations. So we have a pattern as far as the devices go. They're relatively simple in nature, but they're incredibly effective, sadly. FBI had behavioral analysis coming in, trying to develop profiles, and it was just really a whodunit, and where's it going to happen next? And so we're our bomb squad's under an insane amount of pressure. Our investigators everybody involved in this investigation's under an incredible amount of pressure, as you might imagine, because we just wanted to stop this. We wanted to make it stop. And at that point, the command post leadership, and more specifically, our chief of police at the time, they actually decided to, based on some of the behavioral analysis profiling, they decided to actually address the suspect themselves, or the suspect or suspects, through the media. And they actually say to the person that's doing this, I hope you're hearing this. We want to talk to you. We want to understand what's going on. We want to make sure that this stops and that you're safe. And basically the kind of things you'd see in a serial killer investigation or a kidnapping situation. But we didn't have anywhere to go at that point. So we're doing everything that is humanly possible. And that's a possible thing. So we tried it. We never heard, of course, from the suspect or suspects. So time goes by, investigation continues, and that brings us to March 18th of 2018. And this one actually is the first one that happens outside of daytime hours. This happens in the evening hours, kind of about 8:30 in the evening. And in that time of year, it's already dark. It's getting past twilight. It's getting actually dark. And this time, patrol gets a report of an explosion that takes place, and it's in an area of Austin that's actually it's right on the border between the city limits and our county limits. So it's in kind of a suburban area in the southwest portion of the city, which is much more affluent, is a completely different socio-demographics, and it's very much a residential, upper middle class neighborhood is how I describe it. Um, nice privacy fences, well kept yards, nice big homes, things of that nature. Explosion, and you can also probably easily see police body cam footage from this, but our officers went out and they actually were, as they were looking, they said, you could see them saying, hey, there's a tripwire. I saw stuff like this when I was overseas in Iraq. So we have lots of combat veterans in the department, just like all departments do. And as we find out what's going on and units and resources start getting out there, what took place, two young men in their early 20s were actually walking their bicycles down a residential street in Southwest Austin. And all of a sudden, boom, they had an explosion. It struck the lower parts of their bodies, the shrapnel, injuring them fairly severely, their legs, and that's what we had when we arrived. So through the post-blast investigation, it was learned that a tripwire was used. Again, victim initiated, but this is a different tactic. It's a different kind of neighborhood. So the racial component becomes less credible at that point. But the escalation in the placement of the device, this was a hard one because he's using a tripwire now. So anybody could walk by and trigger that.
Yeah.
Children, and there's children playing right on the other side of the fence where this was placed. There's a children's birthday party going on, a 5-year-old's birthday party, with a whole bunch of little ones running around in the backyard on their side of a privacy fence. Privacy fences offer privacy. They don't offer protection from an explosion. Only by the nature of the way it was placed to go into the street rather than to the back towards the house probably saved those kids' lives. So the explosive was placed across the street, and one side of it was attached to a sign. The sign was a large red and white sign that you would see, like you'll drive down a residential street and you'll see like slow children playing, or please slow down in our neighborhood, our children are playing. This one said, drive like your kids play here. Okay, so another one of those type of signs that people place. And that sign was half destroyed, but you could put the pieces together and see what it was. One side of the tripwire was attached to that. The other side was attached to, fixed in place on the other side of the street. And same type of explosive, a pipe bomb, but the blast was directed towards the street, so it would get whoever initiated it. And through post-blast investigation, we also found out, talking to people, looking for witnesses, canvassing the area, nobody claimed to have placed that sign there. So now we're thinking, okay, the investigators are thinking, okay, if nobody who lives here placed that sign here, then we need to look at the possibility that the suspect or suspects place a sign there, which is pretty, it's sinister. It's almost evil when you think about it. I don't want to make it, I don't want to be melodramatic, but that's pretty sick to use a sign like that to hide the device, and he placed the sign behind the device, or the device behind the sign. But this is the first piece of real workable, actionable intelligence. Actionable intelligence means something we can do something with right now that we got. So the analysts, both our analyst and a federal agency analyst, start looking, okay, we have this sign that we believe the suspect left. It's not a cardboard box. It's not galvanized steel. It's not PVC pipe. It's not screws, nails, whatever, shrapnel.
Mm-hmm.
This is something we might be able to source.
Yeah.
Start looking at who in the area sells these. And they find that Home Depot, common store. I think everybody listening in our country recognizes that. For anybody else, Home Depot is a large warehouse box store for hardware and home goods. Okay, you looking for construction materials, you're looking for stuff to improve your home, you go to Home Depot, or it's one of the choices that you can go to. They find that Home Depot in the area sells those. They find it's on the north side of Austin in one of our suburbs, and in a suburb called Round Rock. They then have something to work, right? So now we start looking at cameras. Okay, let's see if we can find somebody who might have done that, and we start getting some evidence, and I'll address that in just a moment. So put a pin in that. So 2 days later, we're working this post-blast investigation. We have some workable evidence, so we're finally starting to see something positive, because we've been taking L's right and left. We need a couple of W's so we can get ahead of this thing. A couple days later, this happens just after midnight. One of the suburbs of San Antonio, again, an hour and a half south of Austin, a community called Schertz. It's a northern suburb, so it's a little closer to the Austin area. But at a FedEx, Federal Express processing facility, an explosion takes place. And of course, that's unusual. But with everything taking place in the city of Austin, that brings a certain level of investigation to there. Bomb squad investigators go. The investigators for that area go. But one of our partners from San Antonio calls our bomb squad and our investigators and say, hey, look, here's what we were dealing with. We had a package at FedEx. It was on a conveyor belt. The conveyor belt, like most conveyor belts, it's not real smooth. It's rattly, and it moves packages along. This conveyor belt was about 10, 12 feet off the ground. Device goes off, probably due to the motion and the rattling of the conveyor belt, and it explodes. But it's 10 to 12 feet above the ground. Nobody was injured because the blast went up and out rather than down. Right. Okay, so I'd rather be lucky than good in a lot of circumstances, and these people were lucky, thank God. So we finally have the suspect or suspects. Things didn't go their way on this one. But more importantly, we have a change in their tactics. They have used a package delivery service to send a device. That is incredibly important, because that could possibly lead to an identification of a suspect. So while we're getting that information, the investigators there, they're able to look, and they're able to get enough of the labeling off the package post blast to determine that this package was initiated in Austin. And the way the FedEx, you find strange things out during the investigation, but the way Federal Express worked, it depends on where the package is going, for which sorting facility is going to process it and then send it. So the package was taken into a FedEx location in Southwest Austin specifically, and it was one of two packages. This package was going to an address in South Austin, so it was sent to this suburban warehouse facility that was actually closer to San Antonio for processing. The other one went to a FedEx processing facility in Austin, because it was addressed to an address in North Austin. So he says, hey guys, this is one of two packages. So that, of course, alarms us. And now we know we have another device. Well, highly likely there's another device. But we also know where the device is, more importantly. So we get patrol out to the FedEx sorting facility in Austin. We shut it down. We evacuate the area, and we bring our EOD unit in. And there's a very notable part of this. we send out 2 of our senior bomb techs from the Austin Police Department bomb squad and a canine handler, a 3-person team, to assess, evaluate, and prosecute this package, which means they're going to evaluate it. They're going to see if it's real, if it is a legitimate explosive, and if it is, they're going to render it safe. And they proceeded to do that. And there's tactics, techniques, and procedures that they use to do that we won't discuss in an open forum. They're law enforcement sensitive. And but the notable part of that is this is the first time in history that a law enforcement bomb squad has successfully prosecuted, diffused, rendered safe a targeted IED explosive device in the United States that we're able to intercept and prosecute this and render it safe. First time it's ever happened. There's been other times when law enforcement bomb squads have found abandoned or suspicious packages and have rendered them safe, but this is the first time this was a targeted IED that we were able to intercept and render safe. So we got a couple of W's that day. And more importantly, we have a location that these were mailed from, okay? So we get video from that. We get video from the Home Depot while this is all going on. And this is March 20th, 2018. And we have a intercepted and rendered safe device. So we're starting to see some momentum building in our investigation towards identifying a target. We get the video from the Home Depot, and it very clearly shows we have a suspect. Guy's carrying the Drive Like Your Kids, Play Here sign up to the register, and he's also purchasing some implements that could be used in an explosive device. And very importantly, we get the outside cameras from Home Depot, and we see that he drives an older model Ford Ranger pickup, red in color. So now we have that, and older model Ford Rangers, there's not a lot of them around anymore. So even though it's laborious and time consuming, we can start narrowing down based on time, place, and location, all the people in that area who may own a red Ford Ranger pickup. We have video of the suspect, so we know what the suspect looks like, the demographics of the suspect, the description, the height, weight, all that stuff. Compare that to the FedEx video, where we have a suspect come in. He's matching the height, weight, and everything of our Home Depot suspect, but this suspect comes in wearing a long, blonde, curly wig, a hat. He's wearing multiple shirts, and he's wearing gloves on his hands, strange gloves that have like a red palm. So very unusual. But we're also able to see in the background of those videos a red Ford Ranger pickup outside. Okay, so we have at least a physical description of a suspect at this point. Through tireless efforts, and again, laborious work, tireless efforts of the intelligence analysts, and specifically one FBI intelligence analyst was able to crack this. Again, hundreds of people working on this, and we're just lucky that this particular individual was able to do that. And it did take looking at registration data for Ford Ranger pickups and narrowing it down to a group of people, and then cross-referencing that with a suspect description. And now we have a suspect name. We have the suspect's Texas driver's license. We're able to show that to people at Home Depot. We're able to show that to the FedEx clerk, and we're able to find out that's him.
So now we have the suspect identified. Next week, we are going to dive into a little bit more about that suspect and kind of what happened on the final day. So thank you so much to Sam for joining us for this series, and make sure to tune in next time.
Thank you.
If you have any questions or topic suggestions for future episodes, please send us an email at podcast@ncbrt.lsu.edu. Make sure you subscribe to the LSU NCBRT Preparedness Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts.